All right, hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to episode number 2 of Orangepillers. For those who didn't listen to show number 1, this podcast is all about sharing stories, thoughts, and lessons about the art and science of orange pilling. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by sending some sats to the QR code in the YouTube description, and we will eventually have these episodes up on Fountain, which is a value for value podcast platform that lets you stream sats as you listen. And something I recently learned lets you earn sats by listening to podcasts, which is like kind of blowing my mind how crazy things are accelerating in the value for value space. So, Pavao, how you doing?
Doing great, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
Nice.
It's crazy how much can happen in a month. This is
Yeah,
one thing I thought about today. I'm writing down all the shit that's happened since we talked last, and I'm like, oh my god, like a year's worth of things have happened,
exactly.
and
Yep.
it only seems like change. Like change is happening. It's happening quick, but I think the most shocking thing for me is the acceleration of how quickly change is happening. Right, how quickly it's rolling over on itself. So, I had some stuff like you know we've had a significant since we chatted last. We've had a
hmm
significant drop in the Bitcoin price, so it's down to
hmm
about 20,000 from its all-time high of almost 70.
hmm
The other day, I looked up what we were at in March of 2020, and I found it very interesting to see that we were at around 5,500 in March of 2020.
hmm
So, this whole relativity bias that we have, where it's like 20,000 feels like the most terrible thing ever because we were at 70, but like 2 years ago, we were at five. So we're still 400% up. It just, I think it skews our perception. Um,
Yep.
and huge stacking opportunity. What are your thoughts on just the past month, or is there anything you want to kick this off with in terms of discussion?
No, I think this is great opportunity. In March 2020, I sent out messages to my group that this is the buy the dip opportunity. I mean, they were all scared, but but some of them did buy
Nice.
the dip, which was short but sweet.
Yep.
This one I think is gonna last a little bit more more
I agree.
time. I also sent them out once we crossed, like once the price went below 200-week moving average, which is like 4-year moving average. I simply had to say to everyone, I mean, just now is the time. If you were, now is a really like a good price entry. Of
Yeah.
course, it may go down a bit more, it may not, but historically this has been really the greatest opportunities for starting your Bitcoin journey. But it's really still it's a long-term game. So
Yes.
yeah.
I think it shows you, like the text messages I get at times like this shows me who has sort
Yeah,
of not done the work, right? Like who,
exactly.
like the analogy of, we recently had a windstorm where I live in Ottawa, and a lot of trees got uprooted and blown down. And as I was driving through that, I couldn't help but notice, like, if you have a weak root structure, you're not going to survive a storm. And this idea that, people who are getting anxious or concerned when the price goes down, I mean, that just signals to me that you haven't really built enough conviction. You either have too much money in Bitcoin because your conviction isn't high enough, or you've put money into Bitcoin that you might need in the short term, which is not
Yep.
wise. And either way, it almost shines a spotlight on those who need to do a little bit more work to build more conviction. Um, and for those who have the conviction, I'm getting text messages where it's like, I'm stacking as much as I can. I'm selling shit. I'm eating one less meal a week. Like the hardcore people are like, this is when you build generational wealth. Not even a joke. Um,
Yep.
but on the wrong, you tell that to certain people, and they just don't have the context for it. But it is a pretty, I don't know. It seems like when we go down to these really big price drops, which I think must happen, right? Like I remember the first big price drop I had when the majority of my wealth was in Bitcoin, which is not that much wealth, but as a percentage of like what I own, it was significant. The first one, I was like very anxious and concerned. I was like, did I make the wrong choice? I don't know what's going on right now. This is kind of concerning. And the second time it happened, I was like, well, the first time I got worried and nothing bad happened, and it's actually way higher now. So I'm okay. And then The third time forward, I'm like happy because I realized that number one, this is necessary, right? It's like when your body has an infection, right? The fever sucks, right? Your body just goes into torch mode. You feel terrible. It's miserable. There's a lot of pain. But having a fever and having that short-term pain is better than staying sick or dying.
Yep.
So it's what we must do. You have to torch out the invaders, and that sets the stage where your body's now stronger and more resilient to fight the next one. And it needs to happen, or else you die, and we don't want to die. And so, yeah, this idea that once you go over the peak of that mountain where your conviction is so solid that you understand the why, right? You understand the why so deeply that it's like, well, others simply don't understand it yet. And that's creating this emotional reaction that carves out a window of opportunity that I may never have again. So I need to take advantage of this, and I have to make sure that everyone in my circle understands, hopefully that same perspective to some extent, and at minimum isn't selling, right? Like that's the biggest thing is you never actually, someone, I think it was my brother's girlfriend's like, my Bitcoin, did I lose Bitcoin? Like, am I going to lose my Bitcoin? I'm like, well, did you sell anything? She's like, no. I'm like, well, you haven't lost anything. You still have as many Satoshis as you had before. You still have. The measuring stick is getting all squirrely right now because people are confused. But you have the same amount. In fact, it's really cheap. You should buy more. And it's, it's a beautiful time. I really enjoy these times. I mean, it's nice to feel richer, I guess. But at the same time, it's like when you can nibble away at all this collateral damage from all the companies that needed to get torched for us to clear away these parasites, it's like, it's kind of nice.
I was watching a podcast with Preston Fish the other day, and he was he was showing up one of the metrics, one of the graphs, which showed the US stock market annualized return against
for M2
adjustment for the M2 inflation since the 1970s, basically, and it's like breaking even, right? So it's like it's a flat line. So while in nominal terms you had like a growth in the stock market, which what I wanted to say is, for example, people who are many people who are invested in the stock market at the moment, they are experiencing maybe 20-25% drawdown from the highs, and they are scared. They don't really have conviction in this. They don't many of them don't even know really what are the companies that they are investing in. They are just autopiloting into some index fund and whatnot, while Bitcoiners, they are basically like 20% drawdown for us is like nothing. It's just
that's like a sneeze. That's nothing.
Just like a sneeze. Like once you are a bit longer into this game, you can see like 80% drawdowns, which are they toughen you up. And the gains are true, really. They are nominal, but they are real gains. Like the purchasing power of Bitcoin is tremendously growing, and it's still going to grow. So it's a true great savings vehicle. And it's people will learn it either way. And I'm even not. I don't really subscribe that if someone needs to sell right now on the drop, I'm not gonna say anything bad about it, because it's hard to get. This is so new technology, like electricity, right? So people need some time to get used to it, to get used to the volatility. I don't think volatility is gonna stop anytime soon.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Look at Weimar. Look what happens with Weimar in terms of gold volatility. Like we're not
exactly.
Was the Preston podcast on what Bitcoin did? Was it with Peter?
Yeah, exactly. I was watching the video recording. Yeah.
That podcast blew my brain. I've already listened to it twice, and I'm like, okay, the storm's actually coming now. Like it's coming.
I think we are in the middle of the storm. The storm has already started. So, but it's becoming more and more kind of, intense. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. But we Bitcoiners, we are more than ready, more than prepared for it, and we will just have to. We will have to be there for our families and communities around us. To, like,
Yeah.
they will have to lean onto our toughened experience with these Bitcoin, huge volatility, because they are not used to it in the traditional markets. I mean, let alone now real estate market is kind of slowing down, and we may witness a crash maybe of the real estate market. That's gonna be really painful for a lot of people.
Yep.
And it's like and it's inevitable. It's coming. I mean, home prices are skyrocketing. I mean, it's like yeah, I mean, people feel this wealth effect, like oh my god, my home is more valuable than ever. But it's not really your home more valuable, it's just the money is being debased. So yeah, your home is still the
What a
same.
spell, eh? What a like sneaky spell that it casts over people, and it's
Exactly,
this,
yeah, it's so
it's this.
pernicious.
Oh, it is, man, and
Yeah,
it's so hard to help people see through that. It's so hard to help them take the
yeah,
glasses off because it's so enticing, right? It's this muse that just whispers in people's ear, like you're getting richer, and
yeah,
and it's such a deep commitment to actually truly understand the mechanics so that you can see what the reality, right? And I think it's almost like it's like gravity. Truth is like gravity. The more disconnected we get and become like lured into this fantasy land that is disconnected from reality. It's like we're going up higher and higher above ground. And the more disconnected you get, the more it hurts when you actually get brought back down to reality, right? The more floors you go up, the harder the impact when you smash down onto the ground when you realize gravity is inevitable. So, I mean, on the flip side of that, I think pain is what drives all behavior. And the boomers, this illusion of wealth has created such a lack of pain that there's no desire to change. There's no desire to really understand this. And I think we're coming up to a precipice where pain is going to be much more prevalent in many more people's lives. I mean, people feel pain right now. Let's not get it twisted.
yeah,
Right? Like has gone up like 75% in the past 3 months in Canada. Like gas affects everything. Your food
yeah.
might not be more expensive right now because they're just shrinking the quantities, but at a certain point, to bring food there requires gas. If gas goes up, it's like going to be a leading indicator for what is to come. So, yeah, I mean, when Preston was talking about this notion that there's $100 trillion in broken money that must find a new home in bonds,
Mm. Yeah,
and this idea that is a tsunami of fiat that must find a new place. And when you actually look at, like, with a rational grounded view in reality, what can actually handle that, what is an appropriate vehicle for that fiat, there's not that many
Bitcoin only.
options. And Bitcoin looks like a real attractive one for a smart,
Yeah,
rational person who understands it at all perspectives, at all levels of Zoom. So, I think it's really weird, some of the shit that's happening, like the short ETF, where this exchange traded fund can own 0 Bitcoin and yet can have huge influence on the price of Bitcoin. It's so silly. But then you have the prospect of the spot ETF, and I don't want to put too much
yeah,
emphasis on that because you never know if it's going to happen and whatever. But I think something like that, I think it does happen within the next 12 months. I think it's inevitable. They're getting so much pressure at the SEC. That creates a very big on-ramp for institutional money to start to come in. And I think it was Preston that said that, Luke Gromen mentions this all the time. Until Bitcoin's a $20 trillion market cap, it's not big enough for
yeah.
these giant institutions to say, okay, well, let's put, 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion. So, and it's one of those weird things where usually when the price goes higher, people deem it as more risky. But actually, when the price goes higher in Bitcoin, it gets de-risked and it becomes a safer vehicle to put your wealth in. That's a weird dynamic that I don't know if we've ever had before. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be fun. If you're a Bitcoiner, it's going to be fun.
Yep. No, it's gonna be, I mean, it's fun for me at the moment. It's just But there is a lot, like a lot of education in front of us, regardless of the, like we can shout from the rooftops that Bitcoin is the way to go, but many people still are still not, especially in the Western countries, they are still not at the real, like really tough spot where they, like I was listening to also Preston's interview with developer from Argentina, and he said
Yes.
like, yeah, he said like basically, listen, like in Argentina, you need only like 7 seconds to orange pill someone. You
Right.
just you just tell them, listen, this is a money that the government cannot print more of. That's it. Okay,
That's
now
it.
let me just show me
Where do I get
how.
it?
Yeah, okay, now show me how.
Yeah.
Okay, I get why. Show
Yes.
me how. Show me how I will get on Lightning, on everything. I will, figure it out there, and that's the reality,
Mm.
really. I mean, here in Croatia also, we do not have like the financial conditions are still not, especially on the coast, where tourism is pretty well developed. Financial conditions are still not nowhere near the level where people feel the urgency to change something so fundamental as their daily money, right?
Yeah.
They have to. I still think we have more way to go to really get to this boiling pot point, right? So,
There's not enough pain.
but
There's that. It's
yeah,
literally there's not enough pain for people
it's
to
there's
actually
not
take
enough pain
action.
yet. But we are here for them, and at least yeah, I mean, my group, they already know, like I'm constantly throwing out the, listen, are you saving in Bitcoin? Like I don't give up. I mean, I simply, I can repeat for 15 times. If I see one person who I have been, like, every time, have you started saving in Bitcoin? No, not yet. You see, this is a crash. It's going to zero. Okay. Next time I walk
I'm here
there,
for you when you want me.
I'm here for you. I'm
Yeah.
reminding you again and
Yep.
again and again. It's just,
I
so
mean, it's touch
eventually they
points,
will.
right? Like all you're doing
Exactly.
there. Like I really think that the art of orange pilling, there,
Yeah.
the art of being able to give subtle touch points where they're not like
Yeah.
intrusive, they're not
Yeah. Exactly.
relentless, but they are there where it's like, it might be at the tail end of conversation. It might be if you get this tiny window that you sense, it's like, have you checked out Bitcoin yet? I got this really good book that I just read. It's really small. If you're interested, it's like just making sure that they know when they're ready, because most people just aren't ready, right?
Yeah.
But when they're ready, you want them to know, okay, well, clearly I know who I should go talk to. I should go talk to Pavao. He's been
Yeah.
telling me
Exactly.
about this
Exactly.
for so long. And so as long as people know that we are there and we can be the person, like I want to be the person I wish I had when I first got into Bitcoin, because it was a totally different time, different landscape. There was very little, you had to really mine out the education, right? And now it's like, there's so much education. You get to pick from the top 5%. Um, and I think times like this forges Bitcoiners um, that can be there for those people when the time comes, right? It's like we all have to double down on our own conviction. Like I'm stacking sats, but I'm also stacking knowledge. I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot more custody hygiene to kind of review my strategy, my custody strategy. It's like I'd rather do it now, so I'm less nervous with how much I'm transferring around, because it's not worth very much, so that when it does go up, things are set up, I have a new strategy in place, and I know how to understand some of these tools that I can recommend to others because I've actually had experience with them. um, but we know the pain's coming, and so it's really just
Yeah.
like build our own conviction, get better at understanding, keep learning. I found it so funny that that Argentinian guy was like, yeah, like my 100-year-old grandfather got it
Yeah.
in 10 minutes.
Exactly.
I'm like, yeah, it just hit so hard that like those people have experienced massive pain for years.
Yeah.
So they're primed, right?
Yeah.
But the people in Canada, especially,
Yeah.
despite
Can
people's
you
bank
imagine?
accounts getting shut off because they disagree with the government, are not yet to the point where they're ready.
Yeah.
But I think it's coming. I think
Yeah.
when real estate takes a beating, because not because houses become worth less, but because they come back down to reality and they get
Yeah.
demonetized, um, people are going to be asking some questions. There's going to be some There's gonna be a lot of people fighting a lot of cognitive dissonance in this notion that, real estate or equities was this black box where you put money in and it spits more money out. This has held true my
Yep.
whole life. This has just been reality. I have no reason to think otherwise. Right? I have this conversation with my father all the time, who's very heavily invested in real estate, and he knows no different. He has never seen anything different. History has told him, if I was him, I grew up in a time where I trusted the government because the government actually had more of my, deservedly had maybe a bit more of my trust, right? They weren't abusing it every fucking month. And I've lived through my life viewing real estate as this incredible investment, and I have been constantly proven right. That's a hard hurdle to overcome, and it's only pain that will stop. It's only pain that will change his historical memory, right?
Yeah.
So, but we know it's coming because it's inevitable. And one thing I heard Preston say, and I've heard Jeff Booth say this a lot too, is this idea that we need to be compassionate to the fact that
Yes.
you and I are smiling. We don't mind times like this. I actually relish and love times like this because I get to just have more calm. I get to learn.
Yeah.
But it's not the norm, right? Like most people are struggling right now and will only struggle more. And this idea that we have to get outside of ourselves and be like, okay, the world is in pain, even though it's not great to be the person that has a great life and everyone else is in pain. Because guess what? Your neighbors around you aren't going to be happy, and that's not a good place to live in. So this idea that we got to be available, compassionate, be resources, not to give people answers, but maybe just to point them in the right direction to go on their own learning process. And that's going to be really important. And I almost have, I don't know if it's because I've curated a different ecosystem on Twitter or if it's actually this like systemic thing that's shifting, but it seems like Bitcoiners are kind of maturing a bit more, right? Like we went through the phase of like, have fun staying poor, fuck you, I'm buying a Lambo, to like, okay, this is getting serious. There's a lot of power accumulating in the hands of Bitcoiners, deservedly so, but we need to be good stewards instead of just telling people to have fun staying poor and putting up castles and keeping people out. Like we need to be careful here.
No, of course. I mean, wealth is really other people. People are what's really valuable here in the whole story. It's like what would you do? I mean, if you were just living alone in the whole world, you could have all the Lambos, all the yachts, all the airplanes, everything. But there is no other people around. Like basically, each one of us, we actually depend on other people. This idea of complete like individual independence, it's a bull crap. It's no way to live. Like if you're on your own, really, like alone, you won't have a great
die.
Yeah, you just die, right? So everything that you have, from the clothes that you wear to the food that you eat, everything was made by other people, right? So but yeah, so really, you're right, we really need to be compassionate and there for others and for normies. And also I also see that Bitcoiners are maturing. We are still maybe a little bit I don't know how to say, maybe too edgy sometimes, but I think we are a good force for those normies. At least they see that there is something different with these with these people. They are kind of I mean, I see now in Rab, it's just completely different kind of I don't know, mental frame that for example that I have versus many of the what I would say normies. I mean, their conversations, I sometimes just cannot even listen to that like more than a couple of minutes. Just so
it's tough,
especially when they start complaining about something, which is like, then I sometimes just throw, Bitcoin fixes this, then they will, what? Yeah, okay, yeah. But I mean, it's gonna, I mean, everything is really just going in its own way. I think everything is really kind of every event has its own purpose, like in this mind of the universe. That's everything is just incredibly like I don't know, purposeful for something. So the pain that we are feeling right now is basically going to be transformed into something much more higher, right? We need this. I was just commenting this this morning we recorded another podcast here in our local language. So I was saying that basically it's like humans today, civilization today is, we are so pampered with the level of technology that we have, with the level, with the amount of energy that we are able to transform, to use. Like Seyfedin, what he uses to say is like, average person who lives in a like Western, developed country or medium developed country, they use more energy than kings used to use like 500 years ago. Because like if a king wanted to have you know transportation, heating in the winter, cooling in the summer, all these different kinds of foods and everything, he would need to have like 100, 200, 300 slaves essentially, who would work for him just to provide him with something that we are not even like thinking about. Like you just
Right.
press a switch and you heat your home, or you press another switch, you cool it down in the summer, and you have running water, you have electricity, you can move with automobiles, with airplanes, with boats, with like you have all different kinds of I mean, it's like, it's insane what we have. Yet on the other hand, like the level of consciousness of the humanity as a total at the moment is so, it's not really matching the amount of power that we are actually having on our hands. This is, I think, why many of the people get scammed with this stupid climate change thing. They are just not feeling that they are kind of in on a level to really contain this amount of energy that we are actually using right now, let alone go up. Like, I mean, we are Bitcoiners are talking about, let's go 10 100 times more energy. Like, it's we are talking about like
Like a
upping the
hitting
civilization.
Kardashev level one is
Yeah, yeah,
it's such a
Kardashev level,
monumental
yeah.
jump. And
But yeah,
yeah,
but humanity as a whole has to go through this growing up phase. Like, we have to kind of, yeah, understand that we are, yeah, this is, time is changing, and yeah, I mean, it's gonna be fun ride. What can I say? It's just it's not interesting time to be alive. So
I
yeah,
agree, man. It's incredibly interesting time to be alive. And I
yeah,
think one thing with Bitcoiners is it seems like understanding why these things are happening doesn't make them any less necessarily painful in a sense. I mean, owning Bitcoin makes everything less painful because you're
yeah,
not getting thrashed in terms of your purchasing power. But I think just understanding it actually lets you take a step back and be like for example, reading the fourth turning. When I read that, at the first time I read it, I was like, okay, this is a little bit much. Second time I read it, I'm like, wow, I'm starting to be able to place where we are and what's happening into this framework, and it's giving me like a more calm sense that I know we have some rough times ahead, but I'm less anxious knowing that I kind of understand the mechanics of this, and more importantly, understand that this must happen. We cannot prevent this. We've gotten here by preventing this thing, this pain for so long. Um, it's like we have this wound, and the first people that tended the wound just covered it up, and then it festered more, and then we got more sick, and then we had to jack ourselves up with antibiotics, and we covered it up
yeah.
again. It festered more. Eventually, it kills us. So we should
Mm.
probably just treat the wound, even though it's going to suck to be very uncomfortable. Um, but if only more people understood that, they would start to feel a little bit more easy, I think, with what's going on in reality, because they would have sort of like a lens to be able to view it through, where it's like, it doesn't feel good, but it makes sense. And I'm not as anxious because I kind of know where it's going and why it's going there and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't agree more, man. We are so disconnected from our biology, and so um fortunate, right? Like the supercomputer we carry around in our pocket uh has now been normalized in such a short period of time that is just the norm. But it's a supercomputer in our pocket. No one, like 50 years ago, no one could have dreamed of that. I show my grandfather that, and he uses very little technology, and he's just amazed. He's amazed. And I think it's hard to recapture that wonder, because it's just it's the world we live in, especially kids today. Like, this is the only
Yeah.
thing they've known. It's just the standard. It's like, what's next? It's like, well, what we have is pretty insane. And I think we just need to appreciate it more, and maybe even not to say like get rid of the technology, but like realize that the technological reliance is actually having a trade-off in our health and in our, it doesn't align with our biology. You and I aren't supposed to know the problems everywhere in the world at all times. Our brains
Yeah,
can't handle that, right? And this idea that people are actually getting broken down because there's simply an overwhelm of too much information,
yeah,
and people haven't been given the tools to selectively choose which information is most important and worth their energy, let alone the fact they have very little spare energy because their time is being stolen 24/7 and they're just having to stay on the hamster wheel. So, you know, I really think that like the idea of helping someone start to understand Bitcoin, or at least nudging someone to be curious about what Bitcoin is, and more importantly, just nudging them to want to understand money, I think is like an act of you're doing that as someone who's orange pilling someone. You're not really benefiting firsthand to a huge amount by doing that work, right? It really is like I went through this idea the other day where like orange pilling someone is an act of love. You're doing it out of love for that
yeah,
person because you want a better future for that person, and obviously that makes you, helping others makes me feel good. So it is kind of, fundamentally it's probably out of a selfish element, but at the end of the day, it's not to try and like make a quick buck and drop your bags on someone. It's literally, I want to help save your socioeconomic life because I see the thing coming. You're not looking at it because you have
yeah,
so much stuff going on, and I get that, but you need to pay attention to this. And I'm going to be relentless in putting these touch points out there
yep,
because it is so important, and I love you and I want you to not get destroyed in this storm. You need to take some measures. You need to take responsibility, really. And that's a really uncomfortable one for people to kind
yeah,
of like, it's an uncomfortable hurdle for people to go over. And I feel like the stuff I've done with health has kind of like warmed me up for this because it's the same fundamental principle where we love forfeiting responsibility and blaming the world for the problems we have with health. We love, and I can relate to this idea that it's painful to listen to normies talk about fifth order effects and complain about fifth order side effects of money, of some bullshit
yeah,
thing where it's like, do you not see that that's just a really far down symptom? And if you complain about that, number one, you can't take action on it because it's a trickle
yeah,
down effect. But number two, if you actually want to, you know, instead of complaining, you want to take action, well, you need to start to learn about money because you use
yeah,
money every day and the money you're using is taking advantage of you. And I know it's uncomfortable to realize that or be told that. But until you actually lean into that and express some curiosity and start to learn, it's not getting better. Um, and, you know, it seems like the people who do flick that switch and get over that hurdle, like they're good. They got momentum. Like there's some painful points when you really start to realize deeply, oh my God, everything I thought I knew about money has been untruthful, and I've basically been a slave to fiat. um it's uncomfortable, but I think that ignites the sense of urgency, which is, it's cool to see someone like go, like when a mother bird sees the baby bird fly for the first time, you see someone recommend a book to you because they just found it themselves. You're like, oh, I'm so proud. So yeah, and it's feels good.
yeah,
So I think the DCA is a powerful tool too. I've realized this recently, where the danger of having someone voluntarily buy Bitcoin on a frequent basis actually
mhm,
exposes them to the price sometimes too frequently, and they start to zone it. They start to get swept up in the emotional element of price volatility, right? And until they realize that like fiat is number stability, number go down, Bitcoin is volatility, number go up. And until they it takes a while to really digest that. Like it took me a long time. I can only imagine. So there's a whole idea that if you can get someone to have a belief that's deep enough that they're like, Bitcoin is better money, I'm going to use it as savings, as my savings technology for 5 years plus money. Getting them into a DCA where they can unemotionally essentially set it and forget it. I have a friend that does $100 a week,
mhm,
and he's the kind of person that gets very sucked in to like he's pretty emotional. He's a pretty extreme person, right? Everything he does is extreme. So, he's higher energy. His threshold to getting like really kind of caught up in something on YouTube or something like that is high. So for him, $100 a week comes out of his bank account. He doesn't even see the price. He understands the value of dollar cost averaging, where when the price is high, you buy less sats. When the price is low, you buy more by default. And you're going to average out to a great price, and dips are actually a good thing. But I think the most important thing I noticed with him was like, he's not exposed to any of the volatility because he doesn't even have to look at the price. And I think this whole idea of the power of the DCA for people who are committed and who can go through the energy to set it up and then maybe completely forget about it is very powerful. And I heard Gary Leland talk about that on Stefan Livera's podcast. And I was like, yeah, I need to start recommending DCAing more frequently instead of people spot buying, because it just, in times like this, it just exposes them to too much of an emotional roller coaster. What are your thoughts on DCAing?
I certainly I like it. I recommend it. It's, here in Croatia, we don't really have like very easy service that can onboard people to automatically DCA. People can dollar cost average, but they have to do it on their own. Like they have to consciously,
Manually
remember
do
and
it.
buy. I think it's great. It's not for everyone, and there is like, I like to go sometimes with more people. I like to go in the other direction. I like to basically go from the first principles with, like, first of all, making sure that they understand that Bitcoin in and of itself is not gonna solve their personal finance problems if, for example, they are used to spending more than they earn, for example. If this is a problem, Bitcoin is not gonna fix it. They first of all have to get over the idea that their inflow, their monthly or weekly or whatever is coming in their money box, has to be lower than what's going out. Now the difference is really
has to be higher.
Yeah, exactly. So there should be a difference between what you make versus what you spend. You have to spend less than what you make. Now, how much less is really, it's very individual, thing. And basically there has to be a difference. You have to make more than you spend. Now, what are you going to do with that difference? I would say you should swipe it to Bitcoin, but depending on your, what you say with your friend who is very emotional, like he has to do something, depending on who I'm talking to, I would say, leave some extra money that you are making, right? So first of all, you have to make extra money than what you're spending. So leave some extra money that you're making. Some part of it you leave it in fiat, and some part you put in Bitcoin. The ratio between fiat and Bitcoin is going to depend on your basically your valuation of stable prediction, like how predictive you want to have your purchasing power in the short, medium, and long term. So if you are someone who is going to perform better, if you are going to be able to make more money, to manage your budget better, if you feel that for the, let's say, next year, you can predict how much purchasing power you may have in a year, then I would say build up savings in fiat, actually, for a year of your expenses, and then above that, put it to Bitcoin. If someone is more comfortable, it depends on their income and how frequent their income is and the level of income and the difference, the delta between the income and their expenses.
How stable their income is too,
and
right?
how stable their income is.
Yeah.
If they make way more than than they spend, then they don't maybe need a lot of months of expenses in fiat. They can swipe everything above, let's say, 1, 2, 3 months of fiat to Bitcoin. So it really depends. And auto DCA is a great tool for that. you just have to, you just have to make the calculation. How much are you gonna actually allocate to it? Not everyone can do dollar cost averaging, because not everyone has the same income schedule. Some people are on a payroll. Some people have, let's say, for example, here in RAB, it's very prevalent and customary for people to have very, very high income during the summer because of the tourist season, and then winter and spring it's much lower, sometimes even nothing. So basically they have maybe 3 to 6 months of very high income that they basically have to stretch throughout the year. So they will have to be sometimes, and there are certain times when they have much more cash, right? And so they feel this wealth effect, so they are more likely to basically spend it. And the other times they are feeling like cash strapped, and then they are, oh my god, that's usually during the winter, so they are like very frugal and so on. And then so all of these factors come into like equation when I advise people on how to approach Bitcoin. The most important thing is to get off zero. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They have to start using this new type of money, because as soon as you start using it, that's when the time starts ticking, right? Because it's only about time in the market. It's not about timing it. It's like if you buy the top right now or the bottom, it doesn't matter. What matters is how long are you, what is the number of days that you spent holding Bitcoin. That's the most important thing. So the sooner you start, the sooner you are gonna actually get it, what it is. Yep. So if you start today, like your at least 4-year journey, right, starts today. Only in 4 years, you're gonna be really understanding what's going on. That's when you will have this halving supply shock. That's when you will have sustainable big bull market. That's where you're gonna experience what it means that your purchasing power goes, 1 order of magnitude, 10x, whatever you saved through these 4 years, that's gonna at least 10x after this halving cycle dynamic is played out. And then every 4 years you will experience even more, this almost like levels of consciousness about the world, because then you're gonna enter the rabbit hole and start talking about all of the things that your previous fiat life is actually how things are just so dislocated and so perverted and so upside down. Yeah. Like, but during this journey, it's just about, for me, what I like to recommend to people is just start using this. Just start slow, start fast, however you want to start it. Don't worry about, even if you make a mistake. I mean, make a mistake with Bitcoin. Almost everybody made a mistake with, like, when they start using Bitcoin. Even if you have to sell it lower than you bought, doesn't matter. Time will go on. You will make more money. You will continue. You will return back to stacking, and over time you will end up better than if you didn't start the Bitcoin journey. That's the most important thing. Just start. How are you gonna do it? Are you gonna DCA? Are you gonna lump sum? Are you gonna over allocate? So you will not be able to sleep at night. Then you will basically downsize your position, because your peaceful sleep at night will allow you to actually make more money so that you can stack more Bitcoin in the long term. That can happen as well. Or if you are under allocated, if you don't feel, like you are forgetting about it, you're just putting some pennies, right? And you are still not like maybe you want to up it a little bit. There is a place for everyone where they kind of feel they start to feel that Bitcoin is changing something in their lives. What it is, what's the level, what's the fine tuning, that's really very, very personal, very individual thing. And people they are learning this. Nobody taught them in school how to manage money. I mean, the fiat schools are actually, you know, whatever they are teaching you, it's like you should do the opposite of it. So, yeah, you are not gonna make it in that world, right? So, and you can't even listen to your grandma's advice, like save for the rainy day. I mean, you can, but like if you
It's a different
save
world now.
fiat, you are sucker, right? You are losing a lot of purchasing power. But I also think that some people who are saving, like if they are, let's say someone in the United States, for example, yes, US dollar has been inflating, let's say 8% on average in the last, I don't know, 50 years, for example. And there are some people who never, I like to listen to Dave Ramsey show. Sometimes I listen to that, and there are some people who have been just saving fiat. They wouldn't even invest or anything, and they literally amassed, you know, maybe $1-2 million in fiat, in US dollars, right, in their checking account,
Despite the 8% thing.
despite which is, and they don't have any debt, and they basically, you know, live, they have paid off home, they drive a car, they are just everyday millionaire, right? But they saved up during their 30-40 year work life. They saved up money. They are not sophisticated enough to even invest it in stock market. Now, I think that if their sense of stability and I don't know, predictability allows them to actually make more money, to overcome the level of inflation, loss of purchasing power. So if they make more on average than inflation is, 8%, let's say, if their salary or their earnings grow more than 8% per year, because of the stability and peace that they feel because of the cash that they have, that's also good. Now, for them, Bitcoin is gonna, like, I don't know how I know some people who have large stacks of cash actually in their homes here in Rab. So for them, starting with Bitcoin is really
they're risk averse, right? They're conservative by their nature.
They're conservative, and this is something new for them. But I mean, it's interesting, because if they I don't know what to say. It's I still have to have these conversations and experiences with people like that, right, who simply save in cash, and they overcome the inflation, the loss of purchasing power, by simply making more money on top of it. It's hard, especially if your inflation rate is very high, which, for example, euro is higher than US dollars. Croatian kuna is higher than euro. So, but people here usually they save in euros, and yeah, it's hard.
Question for them is, like, do they understand the debasement dynamic, right? Like, it's one thing if they just are stacking cash and they understand the debasement mechanics and they're just factoring that in, but the low risk of just putting cash away somewhere tangible makes them feel at peace. That's what they've known. It's worked. The amount of cash there is going up. That's okay. If they're factoring in that trade-off, then there's nothing wrong with that. I guess, like, the questions I would ask are, whether they understand that they're essentially being, Michael Saylor gives this beautiful analogy where it's like every night you go to sleep, someone bleeds you a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're always tired and you don't know why. You're like, what is going on here? And some people don't know they're being bled, right? And for those people, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to dump all that fiat into Bitcoin, but it might create a different set of trade-offs in their mind where Bitcoin could be maybe a part, like maybe 10% goes into Bitcoin because they're like, well, I need to offset that cost of capital, which I have no control over. And this is a big and, because over their entire lives, those people typically are older people. Over their entire lives, they haven't really seen some crazy shit, right? But in the United States, 40% of currency was minted or created out of nowhere in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So this rate of debasement being held consistent is no longer a true story. And unless you realize, like
Yep.
in Canada, in 1 year, from Jan 20 to Jan 21, M2 increased by 18.5%. My parents are not factoring in an 18.5% haircut on their wealth. They're not even acknowledging that as real. So the idea is they must become aware of that
Yeah.
before it gets sliced down so much that they have to go back to work or they are struggling in a big way. So, it's really just like, are they aware, right? Like we know, and maybe
Yeah.
they know, but I really want to make sure that you know so that you can make the best decision for yourself. Because if you're misinformed, it can be dangerous in times like this where things are getting a little bit out of whack.
Yep. Yeah.
And I love
That's
what you
why.
said, just to
Mhm.
put a pin in what you said about this whole idea of, this should be like grade 5 money education, right? You,
Yeah.
in order to save money for the future, you must make more than what you spend. And the
Yes.
delta there determines how much you have available to save. Now, what you do with that savings is another story. And I think you highlighted the fact that everyone is different. Everyone has different circumstances. Like I never even thought of the idea that in RAB, you have this boom period with tourism. And
Yep.
if you sweep all your savings into a vehicle that has to be, that you want to keep there for 4 years, well, you might come into hard times because you need some
Yep.
money on the back end when tourism season's low. So everyone's contextual circumstances are so different that
Yeah.
really what being an orange pillar is being curious to try and understand someone's circumstances so that you can help them
Yep.
make the best decision. Not tell them what to do, but just be like, well, what are all the variables in your life? Because that's
Yep.
really going to be the primary determinant of what is the best move for you financially based on what you want to do, where you are, the certainty of your income, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I think it is, there's a reason the United States has the most Bitcoin. Like tools like Strike, where literally you can press a few buttons in their app
Yeah.
and you can DCA $1 a day for no fees. It's like that's an advanced tool that isn't available to most of the world. And I think there's a big advantage there to those who have access to that. But this idea that, you need to make more than what you spend to have a difference, which is the pool of capital that you have to be able to save.
Yeah.
Um, I think most people's gut reaction is, okay, I need to have more money saved, so I'm going to try and earn more. I don't think many people actually look at the other side and say, well, how do I reduce my personal overhead of living? And I
Yeah.
think Bitcoiners are on the other side where it's like, how can I reduce how much overhead? How can I tighten the filter of things I'm willing to spend my money on, basing this on essentials? Like, do I actually need this thing? I know like my filter for that, especially in times where sats are cheap, is like, do I actually need that? Will I suffer without it? Would I rather have more sats that could be worth a
Yeah.
shitload of money than
Yeah.
buying this thing, going out to this dinner?
Yep.
It really is a totally different economic calculation in your mind when you have the broader
Exactly.
scope of understanding what is actually happening. And I just wanted to say that instead of thinking, how do I make more? Maybe we should be balancing it out and saying, like, how do I spend less?
Yeah.
What is the frivolous spending I'm doing? Can I look into my phone bill and see like, oh, it turns out I'm spending $30 more a month than I need to.
Yep.
If I trim that, that's $30 more of saving, whether I hold it in fiat or Bitcoin, doesn't matter. But I think people have to get that on the radar. And it fundamentally is not something we're taught in school, despite it being something so simple and so primary and so relevant to human life. That it's absurd that we don't learn these things. And
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense that we end up in this really messed up place where no one understands how money works. No one knows how to save. Everyone's literally, in the United States, most people don't even have $500 saved up for an emergency. That shouldn't happen. That's disastrous socioeconomically for a civilization. So it's weird.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree, and I think that's why I like to recommend to everyone, regardless of who they are, to basically start with their finance, start with the budget, learn how to make a zero-based budget, learn how to track your expenses. Personally, I like to recommend them. There is youneedabudget.com. It's a great. I'll send you a link so you can put it in a show description.
Sounds good.
That's a software, that's a service that I use. I mean, it's gonna be like 4 years now. Like literally daily, I track every single expense and every single inflow, every single money making. I mean, income that I have for 4 years, and I know exactly literally every single expense that I made, I know, when I made it, to where I made it, and so on. And this allows you to both, uh, you know, understand that is your income growing? Can you make more money? Are there ways that you can increase your income? And there are. And also, where can you optimize your spending? Like, do you really need this? Do you really need, like, how can you, for example, maybe, basically, in order to plan the future, you need to record the past. You need to, like, simply, you need to have a record of your financials, basically, because financials are your life energy. Like, it's how you put your time. It's the value that you are bringing to other people. And then that's like, it's very exact. It's almost like mathematical formula that you
Yeah.
really need to start. You need to start to think in numbers. So
It's the quantification of your energy.
exactly. And one great thing with Bitcoin is that, regardless of, if you are doing it, if you were doing it before, if you get onto a Bitcoin standard, if you start using Bitcoin, eventually you will have to come to, to this conclusion that there is opportunity cost of your money management, right? So at some point, you are going to experience purchasing power increase, right, in your Bitcoin, right? And you will start thinking about all this, how much is this going to be worth, right? How much purchasing power would I have if I were to buy this or not buy this, right? So you start thinking in this, like, time dimension, right? Because I and this is not happening immediately, but it takes time, and over time it's basically, uh, enhanced, right? For example, let's say yesterday we were at a dinner, so I can already calculate approximately, um, like, my choice, whether or not I'm going to go for, I don't know, a very expensive dry aged, ribeye steak, or a regular steak or ground beef, right?
Yeah.
Burger. What's the difference gonna be in, like, 5-10 years? Like, maybe in 10 years, right? So this small, maybe like, very, very small, lowering of my experience, because I'm not gonna go for the most expensive steak, but rather I would go for a middle or even, like, lower, but still gonna be very nice experience, and so on. Or, maybe I'm gonna have better experience because I know that by taking this slightly, not the best thing, but let's say slightly under the best thing, that recognition will make me feel better, because I understand how much the difference that I saved will be worth 5-10 years in the future.
Yeah.
So basically, so this is what Bitcoin is magical thing, because it starts to place, money in time, right? For you start to think of the opportunity cost over time, and that's really powerful. That's something that's gonna, like, I know my mom, for example. She's like, she was orange pilled by me in 2018, late 2018, and she was saving, some Bitcoin every month, and she already she decided to spend some of it, on, but on, house improvements and so on. But, she's still, saving up, part of it's just part of her daily life.
Right.
She uses Bitcoin as money, right? So really, like, she's completely different now, because now she would, first of all, never get into debt for anything, right? Because now she understands that she can save up for what, literally, like, anything that she wants to have. if she saves up enough, if enough time passes, she will be able to get it, right?
Hmm.
Now, um, this is what makes her much more peaceful, much more calm, right? And this again allows her to manage money better. And it's great to see these transformations that are happening with people. And
It changes people, man.
it
It
changes people.
literally,
It allows them to plan.
yeah, it makes them
It
more
gives them hope
intelligent
for the
with their
future, right?
decisions.
Yeah.
And I
Because
think
if
what
like,
you
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, please let's say.
I was just gonna say this whole, even what you're talking about a few minutes ago. This whole idea that there is an initiatory process to become a
Yeah.
Bitcoiner. It is spending 4 years with skin in the game.
Yeah.
Um, it cannot be cheated. There are no shortcuts. It is actually hard work because it involves a
Yeah.
lot of learning. And in that 4 year period, you are going to be tested um, probably many times because of the volatility. And it's
Yeah.
almost like the only way to be forged as a durable, resilient Bitcoiner is actually to go through that process. And the sooner you start, the sooner you get there. And there is no shortcut. And it's like the people who panic when the price goes down, you can tell have not done their initiatory period yet. And I've started to, like, when you said that, I'm starting to realize how profound that mental model is, because it is true. I've learned it to be true in my life and in all the people I know. And yeah, it really does change. And one question I have is, like, I've gone through a lot of my life where I just am making much more stringent economic calculation, right? I will hold off on things that I
Yeah.
want, or that I formerly would have had. Instead of ordering an alcoholic beverage, I'll drink water at a restaurant. Little things. But once in a while, I just go. I just, like, buy a nice meal, or it's a special occasion. So it's almost, the calculation for me now is like, okay, I've spent a lot of time sacrificing things with a low time preference to save. When do I start spending my Bitcoin? When do I start, like,
Yeah.
I've almost pegged my lifestyle to be very low, to be pretty far under what I could theoretically afford based on what I have, but I don't want to spend it because I know every every cent I spend now
Yeah.
is going to be worth way more fiat 4 years from now. And so there's a trade-off there, but I think it makes you think deeper on things. That's it, right? It makes you go deeper into the mental model of thinking through these trade-offs. And every person's decision is still going to be subjective based on their desires and their future and what they want and all that kind of stuff. But it just gives you it's like before you're wearing glasses, things are kind of blurry. You're making the best decision you can, but, like, I don't really know, I'm not fully aware of my spending, of what my delta is each month.
Yeah.
Whereas Bitcoin puts these glasses on where everything is crystal clear. Everything is right in front of you. It doesn't mean that it necessarily makes instant sense, but it's clear enough for you to start to look into it and make sense of it, and to put more energy into those decisions. And, at some point there becomes a threshold where it's like, I can spend either 10 hours more per week working to make more fiat, or when's the point where those 10 hours are actually better spent learning about Bitcoin and learning how to keep my Bitcoin safe? And that is an interesting space to get to, where it's like, my time is actually best spent learning about how to keep my Bitcoin safe than trying to earn more fiat to convert into Bitcoin, right? Like, CK Snarks from Bitcoin Magazine talks about how people don't appreciate what they have, in that one Bitcoin is generational wealth, right? Like, we don't appreciate the value of one single Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis. It's so hard to think exponentially as humans that we actually underestimate what we have and how precious that is, and how much energy we should probably put towards making sure we never lose that, because it took us a long time to get there, and it can be worth a lot of money. And yeah, just this notion that it completely changes the dynamic of how you make decisions in life when you understand, that coffee you buy that's $5 that you buy 3 days a week, all of a sudden that might not be worth it anymore. And that's a good thing, right? It's a good, and, we talk about responsibility, and with health, we break down the word responsibility into response able. Are you able to respond to the situation you're presented with? And the ability to respond only comes with awareness. Without awareness, you cannot respond. And I think what you're talking about of knowing really the metrics each month of your spending, of what is going in, what is coming, what is going out, what is the difference, where are my opportunities to maybe have less go out or more come in. To me, that sounds like just a gaining of awareness, of having an awareness of your financial circumstances.
Yep.
Whereas before, it's like you get the blurry sense, but you don't have enough detail to actually make the really sharp decisions of deciding. And I think another thing that does, gaining that deep awareness of like, you know, if you want to know, it's all fine and good for people to say what matters, right? Values, I think, are an important thing. Being clear on your values. And to me, a value is just something I value, something I deem matters. You want to do the uncomfortable audit of seeing how do your values that you subjectively claim to hold actually match up with the reality you're living. Look at where you spend your money, because that's an indicator of where you're spending your time. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to realize that what I'm spending my money and time on doesn't align with what I think matters in my life. Well, it's you patch up a blind spot, and all of a sudden you can kind of like align those things. So I think just doing a deep dive into what are the detailed metrics of where my inflows and outflows are going and what is being spent on is so important. And that awareness is what enables you to take responsibility.
Yep.
And I think more people just need to do that. That's a good starting point.
Yeah, and there are other beautiful tools and techniques that I have been learning since I started really, you know, in my, let's say, yeah, since 2018, 2019, this period of my Bitcoin journey. It's gonna now in July, I think in the middle of July, it's gonna be 8 years that I spent off zero, basically. Yeah, July 2014 was when I first started. In the last couple of years, I also started applying another financial tool, which is literally when I budget my income, I always separate 20% of that income into a budget category that's basically, this is the money that I'm going to give away without any, just give it. And that has been like, it's an ancient wisdom that's basically recommending you to give away 10 to 20% of your income. And what happened once I started doing that a couple of years ago, it's like, I think that's like almost like a hack of the universe. What happens is you are, I mean, you basically start to make much more, regardless, because it's like counterintuitive. How am I going to like it increases your wealth, it increases your spirit of generosity, and people start to, some crazy business opportunities basically start to open up over time, and you don't really, you cannot predict them, but it really works. It's like and it works regardless of what's your starting point. That's another thing that well, not maybe immediately in the first session of my orange pilling sessions, I don't start with that, but once someone is a little bit more, you know, in this journey with me, then I kind of I start recommending that they intentionally separate part of their income and find a way to give it, you know, give it to a member of your family who is maybe struggling with, you know, making a payment on their loan, or just find a way to give, or just leave a larger tip in your coffee shop, or just understand that the moment that you give, it's like your heart is oh my god, so happy. And basically what happens is people always feel this subtle energy around you. So, and if you are, let's say, if you are in debt, if you're in deep you know, debt, which is why I don't recommend anyone to take on any debt for anything, because spiritually speaking, you start to emanate this slight, or maybe more slight, but this slight feeling of desperation that you have to either close this deal or get this job or make more money, because you are underwater, and people do not like to feel guilt if they don't help you out, or they don't increase your payroll, or they don't do a business deal with you, or whatever. People do not like have to deal with that desperation spirit in people. People like to connect with people who they feel generous spirit, like their cup is overflowing constantly. They are just, there is infinite amount of any wealth that they have, right? And this is only achieved if you really start giving, right? You have to give more money to have more wealth, right? And your Bitcoin stack is gonna exponentially grow, right? That's really, like, it's a huge secret. It's I mean, his secret. It's if
no
you
longer a
start,
secret.
yeah, it's like it's almost, yeah, it's really like a hack.
It's
That's
ancient wisdom. I mean, this is
it's
in a
ancient
lot of the
wisdom, yeah.
religious stories, right? Like you give a
It's
certain amount,
religious,
you
ancient
tithe.
wisdom, yeah. It's really it's almost more about you. It's like you are getting more from it than the one who is actually receiving. I mean, it's good for them to receive. You are helping out. You are always gonna make someone's day if you throw some money at them. It's like
Help them.
but
Just help them.
helping, or just tipping or whatever, but it's gonna do much more for you, because what's gonna happen is your income side is gonna increase. You won't even imagine how much and from where. And your 10 to 20% of giving budget is going to increase with it as well, right? If you make $50,000 per year, if you go from 50, let's say you make 50 and you give away $5,000 to $10,000, over the course of year, right? Really strictly budgeted, right? So you have this part of the budget that you are literally giving away, and that's gonna make your yearly income go to $500,000, and suddenly you will be able to give $50,000 to $100,000, and then if you continue on that path, you will start making $5 million per year, right? You will basically increase the amount of monetary energy that's coming through you, right?
You generate abundance.
You,
By
you,
being
you generate
abundance minded, you generate
and it
abundance.
feeds on itself, right? It's like a virtuous cycle that basically, once you start, it's like an avalanche that starts no matter where you are. It's literally, you can have, like, you can be having only
you don't have to be wealthy, supremely wealthy to do this. Also, I think that's I think that's one thing people need to kind of digest. It's like, you don't have to have a huge amount of money in order to give some away. You just have to, and I think one thing it does too is it puts you in check to make sure you're not living beyond your means, because you automatically have to live within the constraints of 5 to 10 to 20% of your money being given to others. And I think even just this notion of generosity also trickles into time, right? This idea that being in debt essentially forces you into a high time preference way of living, such that you are always in a rush. Like, this is one thing I sense when I look around at the world now, to a big extent. One thing I've tried to do is I never want to be in a rush anymore. I never want to have to get to somewhere quickly, because I now have more time thanks to Bitcoin. And this idea that everyone's getting so fired up and upset, like even in traffic, people are honking. When people are walking along the sidewalk, they're not walking, observing, looking for opportunities to engage. They're like, I need to get there because I only have this much time. And the idea that even just starting this practice of giving by giving your time, by just being less in a rush, taking 5 minutes to spin up a conversation with a stranger and ask them how their day is, like that is a way of giving. If money represents your time, then your time is also something you can give, and you don't have to have any wealth to offer your time. Like
Yeah.
my mom knows that the best thing I can give her on Mother's Day or her birthday is spend a full day with her with full presents. Not give her money, not give her gifts that she doesn't need. It's just like undivided presence and time and being there to listen or whatever it is. Like those are the things that we are poor in. And those are the things that we skip over when we have this high time preference way of living based on scarcity, which usually is derivative of I owe someone money. I must do this so that I can pay that back because it's in the back of my brain at all
Yeah.
times. And I think it's such a powerful mindset shift. And it just makes your life better, right? And I think what you do there is you're improving the community around you. You giving to someone probably is going to inspire that person to give to someone else. And before you know it, the entire web of your local community has been upgraded because people are more generous. And we get back to this notion of community being we help our fellow humans who are in need, knowing that when I'm in need, if I'm ever in need, they will
Yep.
reciprocate. And it's not because I'm expecting it to be reciprocated. It's just that is the law of the universe. This is how things work. And you're right, it just upgrades your life. Even just giving someone a slightly bigger tip than you normally would, right? Like we tip like 15% here, give someone 25%. That makes me feel I'm doing that for selfish reasons when I do it, but I know it helps
Absolutely.
that person.
And it's really like there comes a point for me, at least. I mean, I'm now learning to be grateful for the opportunity to be able to help someone like that. Like when there was a Corona crazy hysteria, there was a couple of people here in Rab whose jobs were threatened, right? Who were in a really bad situation, and we were able to help them out financially, literally. Just this is just take the money. Don't worry about it. Like don't take just don't do something that you will regret later. Don't worry about the money. Like let it. I mean, the fact that I was able to experience this feeling of literally truly, bridging some dark periods of time for someone with something that I mean, this money is like it's so transitory at the end of the day. It's like
Yeah.
you're not gonna be like and like and and how it works, really, it comes back to you like 10 times more. So
Right.
you are
When you know
presented
that,
with
it
a new
helps.
challenge, which yeah, now you have, so like now your budget category grows more, and you basically have your responsibility grows larger, because now you can help even more people with more meaningful amounts, meaningful, like larger, or even like everything goes up with your time is worth more. Your money can you are just acting on the world with more energy, right? You're more responsible, you're more free, your freedom goes up, and your responsibilities go up.
Right.
And it's really like we are growing up. Like, I mean, I really feel like in my prior fiat life, I think, I mean, I was like, I made so many stupid, like oh my god, it's like stupid mistakes with everything, with my time, with relationships, with money,
Yep.
with
Same.
but now really Bitcoin is really opening up all of this. It's a great vehicle to start really growing up, right?
Yeah.
Being a responsible, wise adult who can can really take on some more responsibilities, for yourself first, for your family, for your friends, community around you, for that's why I love talking with Bitcoiners. I mean, it's like it's something different, with someone who is who has been in Bitcoin for a while. We can much more quickly get to the same frequency, let's say, of thought. And yeah, and I look forward for minting, forging more Bitcoin. I mean, we would live in such a beautiful, happy world, much more happier world, if more people were start doing these practices, and because like everything is so abundant, it's all
Yeah.
about your perspective basically, right? You can have two different people, and one of them can have objectively 100,000 more, money or wealth on their hands, but if they are constantly comparing themselves to someone who has more than them and is in huge debt, even though they have a lot of assets, they have a lot of debt, and they are constantly trying to up the ante on that guy over there who has even more than them. I mean, they live in a world of scarcity, of fear, of stress, of whatever. While on the other hand, you can have someone who is just starting out, or maybe he's, but he's, he's separating his 10-20% of his income. He's giving, he's growing, he's abundant. His mindset is of abundance. He is grateful
Yeah.
for everything that he has, and more things are coming his way. And he's always like, yeah. So that's why, you, yeah. I don't know. I just
Dude,
started
that's
to
very,
laugh.
it's very powerful because really
Yeah,
it's like, it's almost like you can have a person,
yeah,
they are the same person, the view that they have is the same. It's the same world, right? And
yeah,
you're the same person, you have the same circumstances, same income, same family, whatever. And you have this fiat lens, which gives
yeah,
you a certain perspective, which
yeah,
is usually underlined by scarcity, because that's what it's designed to do. And then you can just switch the lens like you twist a microscope and you switch the lens to the Bitcoin lens, and the same world and the same person has a totally different perspective, a totally different mindset. You see opportunities you didn't before. Um, the idea that Bitcoin gives you more time to do what you love,
yeah,
and the fact that a better world starts with more people doing what they love, not being trapped in this weird form of slavery. Um, it really is. It's funny because a couple of years ago, I usually go to Costa Rica every year, and there's usually an elder that goes there. We do a sweat lodge. They put on ceremonies. And 2 years ago when I went, I witnessed a teenager basically be initiated into adulthood with a sweat lodge, peyote sweat lodge. So you eat some of this cactus, you go in. It's a very intense experience, like literally.
no,
It's
I can
so hot.
imagine.
It's like the hottest sauna you've ever been in. You're expected to sit up. You're singing. There's certain rounds. It's a very cool experience. It's like a 2-3 hour experience, and it's very difficult. And what's funny is most of the women handle it, they crush it. Most of the men are the ones who are
Yeah,
like, struggling the hardest. But I witnessed this boy go into the sweat lodge. This elder ran the ceremony. The boy toughed it out and essentially went through everything. And after, we're all sitting by the fire because they essentially put these stones in the fire. They heat up the stones. They bring the stones in the sweat lodge around, pour water over it, and it's like just a crazy sauna. But when we got out, the elder basically said, "You have now, you're now a man. You now have a set of responsibilities. You have to take care of your family. You have these things you need to do, and you've just been initiated from boyhood into manhood." And I think these initiation rituals have essentially been lost from most Western civilizations. And I think that's part of the reason we get stuck in, our teenager. Like we act like teenagers far beyond the teenage period, myself included, right? You make silly decisions, you do silly things with relationships, like you said, and just the way you view the world is like this very immature thing where, we live in a world where we can forfeit responsibility and have everything we want. And so why not do that, right? That's like the boy mindset. And it's almost like Bitcoin is a sweat lodge to
yep,
bring people into a mature way of being in the world, and ushers you to this point where, like an elder is someone who plants the grapevines knowing they'll never taste the wine, because they know that that is their way of contributing to the world and essentially making sure the next world is a better one than they lived in. And I think that mindset can only come through work, right? Like you have to be initiated, you have to be around people who actually foster that mindset so that you become inspired to become part of that group of people. And I think that's what Bitcoiners are, right? Like we're maturing. As you go through Bitcoin, you mature, you see the world differently, you view it through more abundance, you realize that the more I give, the more I receive, the better the world is. And it's infectious because you just want to spread it. You're like, well, I want
yep,
more people like that, because that's how we get to the other side, out of
exactly.
this crazy place we've somehow managed to get ourselves into, and now we have this thing that is morphing everyone. Everyone is going through this 4-year sweat lodge and coming out on the other side as different humans. And I just want to be around those humans because
Yep.
the conversations I have are so nourishing and so powerful that I
Yep.
leave so inspired, where it's like I need to do more. I need to give more. I need to be more careful with how I spend my time. And it is really this pretty incredible thing. Like if we didn't have this, I don't know what I
Yeah.
would be doing or what my mindset would be, because
Yeah, exactly.
it'd be pretty dire.
No, it's great. I mean, we are really yeah. I look forward for our next conversation, because I know, from this day until next, let's say next 30 days, I'm gonna go up my health work even more, because now I kind of feel this almost like accountability, right, towards your your like how you presented in our conversation last time, the health tool, like the journaling your health journey as like a
Proof of
proof of
work.
work. It's really powerful. I mean, I already started my journal a couple of months ago, like a physical journal. I had my journaling phases up, off and on and off in the years before, but now I'm pretty diligent, with journaling. But since our last conversation, I really started, adding some thoughts about health. I started some, not every day, but let's say maybe 2/3 of the days were like in intermittent fasting, so I kind of got my metabolism a little bit better, and yeah, it's like yeah, it's beautiful, like
It's
uh,
all about momentum. It really is.
yeah,
And I think Bitcoin
it
is like
is
that too, where it's
it
not
is
actually about doing a huge amount any single
yeah,
day. All it is about stringing together your blockchain of behaviors, right? It's like every
yeah,
day, just do a little bit, and just reflect on the fact that you showed up and did something. It doesn't matter if
yeah,
it's like a 5-minute walk, or literally, it could be like, I encountered a stressful situation. I took a couple of deep breaths before reacting. Like that's your intentional, um, block that you mined for health that day. And all it is don't break the chain now, right? Like it's
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
even that you have to mine like a billion transactions. It's just like put one block in, know that you showed up, and know that it creates a better foundation that you can build on tomorrow.
yep,
And this idea that like I think high time preference culture has fucked up health. It just has,
of
because
course.
everyone wants it tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone,
yeah,
and the messed up part is there's always a fiat person that's going to promise you they can give it to you tomorrow, and it's
yeah,
bullshit. But
for
they
sure.
know that that's what people have become accustomed to wanting, so they just feed the beast. It's like, people become their incentives. But I think when we revert back to this whole notion that like health must also be viewed through a low time preference lens, because it is actually a perpetual journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah,
It's like every day do a little bit more to take care of myself so I can take care of other people and so I can live
yeah,
a pleasant life. And when you take that, it's almost like um, I never thought about this until right now, but the idea of feeling like you are in a health deficit is like being in debt.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
scarcity mindset. Everything is urgent. I only deal with problems when they blow up. Whereas when you switch your mindset to health as a low time preference thing, you're not in a rush. You're just like, I'm just going to do a little bit. And it's so much more grounding and relaxing. And, like I've realized that I'm very lucky. The other day, I realized that silence um,
mhm,
is like a luxury now, right? Like
yeah,
a Gucci handbag used to be a luxury where only rich people could afford it. Silence is a luxury, and most people in lower income levels don't have that luxury. They live in places that are more noisy. They're typically exposed to more noise at work. And this idea that even just feeling very grateful for the fact that I have access to silence when I need it, and be able to recalibrate my brain and like get clarity when things are foggy, it's like you start to become grateful for things that you never even knew were of value. At least I find in my experience. And it just makes you view the world differently, right? And when I run into someone that is in a rush or stressed, or just like, you can tell they're redlining, right? And maybe they've been redlining for a while. just being able to say, hey, how's your day going? What do you think about the weather? Like just being able to essentially like recalibrate
Yeah.
their energy a little bit. It's not like you're going to change their entire day, but if you can help them rebalance, like they're just in that mode, that's the only mode they know that exists. And if you can just bring down the energy to a more human level and
Yep.
just have a slow conversation and not be in a rush, maybe that rubs off on them and says like, maybe I don't need to be in a rush as much. Why am I always
Yep.
rushing? Right. And I think one thing with me with orange pilling these days is like, I just try and figure out what is this person's pain point? Where is their pain in this person's life? And how can I just listen to understand, to help them just feel heard, right? And feel witnessed. Because if no one's witnessing your lived experience, it doesn't matter as much. And it doesn't matter if, how you're living it. But just listening and witnessing, and then also understanding. If I can understand that person's pain, maybe I can understand a slightly better way to relate that pain to the fact that the money's broken, because I know that's the cause.
Yep.
But it's really hard to draw. It's really hard to bring up Bitcoin. I was like, oh, you feel you're in a rush today? Well, Bitcoin fixes that. It's like someone's like, all right, this is a crazy person. But if you really like take a curious, authentic interest, and I think that that's the big asterisk, is like it has to be real. You can't just be doing it as a means to an end. You have to be doing it because you're intuitively and in a real sense curious about this person's experience, wanting to understand them, with the intention that, I've gained a bunch of understanding about how Bitcoin can change the dynamic of my life. I want to understand where your pain points are, help you be able to build a bit of a connection between the money is stealing from us all, and now you are left here, 5 orders out from that, where now you're in a rush all day long every day and not living a pleasant life. So how do I relate your pain to broken money and maybe stimulate a bit more curiosity to learn about money? It's like that saying where, the old fish goes up to the 2 young fish and says, hey guys, how's the water? And they're like, what's water? Because they're just in it. They don't even know that they're in water, because water is just there, right? Like money is this thing that we use every day. And it's one of the biggest reasons people kill each other. One of the biggest reasons people disagree or have problems or stresses in their life. And yet we never question whether there's a different way to do money. And in fact, we haven't had a different way of doing money until Bitcoin. But, we're so early that the opportunities to really understand people and see like, what is the best way in for these people? Because they don't want to be in pain. They probably want to learn the solution to their pain so they can solve it, but they don't feel they have the time to learn it, or maybe they don't even know they need to learn it because they've misdiagnosed the source of their pain, right? The source of my pain is my shitty boss. It's like, well, that might be the most immediate one, but it's probably not the root cause of the problem. And so just helping people, not necessarily telling them anything, but just, it's like not giving them answers, questioning the answers they've accepted that aren't actually true. I think that is like the ultimate challenge of helping people, is how do you help someone without giving them answers? Because number one, you don't have the answers for them. They must discover their own answers, but they're not close to being able to even asking the right questions. So how do we make them ask better questions? And I think sometimes I see it on people's faces where the light bulb goes off, and it's like, they might not look into it tonight, but something has changed where they now have this new piece of data on their radar that doesn't fit with their version of reality. Maybe that makes them be like, I wonder if there's something there. I'm constantly being reminded that this thing is still there and I'm always in a rush, or all these things are happening. Maybe I should look into that. And I think that that's, if everyone just meanders over to the side of curiosity, to wanting to understand things that are underlining all the problems, that's how we get to the other side, right? And that's how you help build bridges to save people. It's like when we say saving people's lives, we talk about their biological lives, but like your socioeconomic life really determines the quality of your biological life. And by helping people be curious about money, you're saving their socioeconomic lives. Because right now they're being threatened constantly without even realizing it. Powerful motivation, man. Like this is why it's like Bitcoin. The other day I started to find Bitcoin. I'm like, Bitcoin is just a genius set of incentives. That's all it is. It's a system of incentives, to the point where you and I using Bitcoin and having our lives significantly upgraded makes us want to upgrade other people's lives for selfish reasons. It's like a beehive, right? Like all the bees are selfish because they don't want to die, but the only way they don't die is they protect the queen. By protecting the queen, they help the whole hive. It's
Yep.
like this beautiful incentives web that is just keeps blowing my mind, man. Like it never gets old. I've been in this since 2015 and I get my mind blown every week, every podcast. I'm like, Jesus.
Yep.
Beautiful.
It really is. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Thankful that I'm very thankful that we have it, because if we didn't have it with the level of technological sophistication that we do have
Yeah.
without Bitcoin, oh my God,
Yeah.
we could
The pendulum would
face.
shift to the wrong direction pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be. Oh my God, no, not even gonna think about it. It's just too too scary.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good place to wrap it up. I think that was a great
Yeah,
that was a great conversation, man. Like I said, I'm
it
grateful. I
was.
think
Yeah,
monthly
definitely.
is a good enough cadence that it's not like a, you know, it's enough that you can have a fresh set of thoughts to kind of go through. And I take notes
Yes.
intermittently of being like, this would be interesting to talk about. But yeah, grateful for your time, grateful for your thoughts and conversation. I usually a week after we record, I listen to it so that it's not completely fresh in my brain. But last time when I re-listened to the one that we recorded last time, I was like, I picked up some things that I didn't pick up in conversation. So yeah,
Yeah.
very grateful.
Well,
And yeah, to those listening, we hope you find these enjoyable. I mean,
thank
like
you
we
for your
said,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you
if
for
no one
for
listened, we'd
doing
still
this.
do
This
them.
is great.
Cool, brother.
And yeah,
Take
sending
care of
much love
yourself.
to everyone who is listening. And yeah,
Cool,
we'll
dude.
see each other next month.
Sounds good. Next month, man. And to everyone listening, take care of yourselves. Spread knowledge, spread wealth. Try giving a little bit of your time or money away because it
Yep.
comes back in a multiple.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, great advice. Great advice, Pavao. And yeah, we'll end it there.
Bye bye.